What's up, everyone? This is PWI Presents Face Turn with Candace Cordelia. I am your host, Candace Cordelia. And for today's episode, we have two guests. This is very new for myself, but this is going to be double the fun. And I hope y'all enjoy this interview. I have sitting with me Leila Grey and Luke Kurtis. How are you both doing today?
Hey, hi. We're doing fantastic. Very excited about all of this. Thank you so much for bringing us on.
Yeah, it's truly a pleasure. Yeah, everything's been going good. A lot of wrestling, so that's always good.
Yes.
We're excited about this. We're excited to talk to you. And
yeah, I'm excited as well. Sorry if I just I think my excitement is just like I'm ready.
Yeah, I mean, I'm ready too. Yeah, let's go.
Awesome. So one thing's for certain, this is the first time that I personally have interviewed a wrestling couple, if you will. But I'm super jazzed to do this because both of y'all in your wrestling careers, you're doing amazing, fantastic things individually. And as a couple, things seem to be going very well. We've had a rough year and a half with this pandemic, but between the both of you, you guys have been absolutely killing it in wrestling. So I just want to start off with, and we can go individually, whichever makes more sense for you both. I'll start with you, Luke. You're from Florida. I know we kind of talked a little bit before this interview, and you're from Florida, a really, really small town, as you've stated before, in Florida as well. I would like to know, first and foremost, how you got into wrestling.
Well, the story kind of ties together as far as that goes. But I started doing amateur wrestling when I was a young kid. I was getting in fights all the time in school. I was probably an aggressive kid. My parents would argue, they would fight. So I don't know, I guess it maybe transitioned to me. I would beat up all my friends and stuff. But I was nice, but I was just aggressive and I liked to roughhouse, and eventually it would lead to like fights and things like that. So my mom figured that I needed an outlet. So she took me down to the local YMCA and she put me in wrestling. And I wrestled all the way through high school, been all around wrestling. I traveled out of school wrestling, amateur wrestling. And as an adult, when I got out of high school, I did a little MMA at a place called American Top Team. I trained with some UFC fighters, things like that. But, a bunch of things happened in my life and I stepped away from combat sports in general. I became a mechanic. And I was drinking a lot. It was a different time for me, and then it kind of, I met her and she could take off the rest of it. She could tell you exactly how we got into it.
So then, we'll get into my background as well. My background is mostly entertainment. I've always been into music. I'm a singer. I'm an actress. I do modeling. I went to college, graduated with a bachelor's in broadcast media. So I spent a couple years working in radio. I've always been in entertainment. I've always loved performing for people. When I was young, I definitely didn't know that I would end up being a professional wrestler, but it was always something that I kind of had in the back of my mind. And I never even mentioned it to anybody. It was just something that I'm kind of interested, but, just never actually thought about pursuing it until I did.
And to second that, we had been hanging out. We had already become friends. She was modeling. I was just a mechanic. I was just drinking. And she had a magazine cover come out and, I got one and she signed it or whatever. And she had similar to a 12 question in this magazine. And one of the questions was, what would you like the fans to know that they don't already know about you? And we hadn't even spoke about wrestling at this point. And even with the amateur background in wrestling, we still never talked about it. It was weird. It was never something that came up. But she wrote in there, I used to want to be a professional wrestler. I kind of still do, ... And this was probably a year and a half before we even got into business.
This was in 2018.
Yeah.
So a few years back. And for some reason, once I put that down on paper, it kind of ignited something in me. Maybe you should go for this. Maybe you should give it a shot. So I finally brought it up to him, expressed my feelings, how this is something that I wanted to try. And at first he wasn't so about it.
Yeah.
Coming from an amateur wrestling background, you know, he probably thought it was a little silly at first.
Yeah, I didn't really want nothing to do with it. I mean, I loved professional wrestling as a young man. It's one of the reasons why I got into wrestling. But amateur wrestling is not the same at all. And they kind of break you from that because they got to put this competitive nature and this one-on-one mano-a-mano thing in your head. So, you know, professional wrestling was something that had died inside of me for a long time, you know, but I was to the point where I was a young man. I went to Ace Hardware. I got a chain from the store and put a padlock on it. I used to go around thinking I was John Cena. You know, I had an Ace Hardware chain. I was the doctor of thugonomics, you know, so, but after like going away from all that, she kept mentioning the wrestling thing like here and there.
For like a good maybe like 6 months, I was mentioning it, and I had reached out to a school that was in Miami where we were living, and so I was talking to a trainer for like a couple months before I was finally like, listen, babe, we gotta go. We gotta do this. And I remember that day we were like laying in bed and I was like, if we don't go today, we are never gonna do this. And we got up off our asses, went to this wrestling training, and the rest was history. As brutal and hard as it was, especially for me, because my background, I don't have as much of an athletic background as he does. So it was really tough for me, but we both walked out of that class super enthusiastic about it. And what were your first words, babe?
I'm going to the WWE. As soon as I walked out of there, I knew. I just felt something inside of me when I got back in the ring, because I had gone through like a really down part in my life, you know. I had always wanted to do combat sports. I was a football player, a wrestler. I love contact, that physical. You know, that's just in me. That's just the way I am. It's an outlet for me. It's a way for me to release stress. And, you know, being able to get back in a ring, and just when I heard it creak and I felt my feet impression into the mat, it's hard to describe, but I just knew that I could do this. You know, I said, this is my second shot. So like, let me go out there and make this work, you know? So.
Wow.
So yeah, that's how we got involved in the business. And I mean, the rest is history. It's taken off since then.
Yeah.
Taken off is an understatement, because I did not know, first of all, 2018, it's 2021. So from what I'm understanding, from what you're telling me and all of our viewers, I mean, this all took off for you guys in the span of about 3.5 years, which is insane. I mean, I've had many guests on this show so far, and everyone has a different backstory. Some people have been doing this for years on end, and others, just like both of you, you know, they've started fairly recently. But both of you have such intriguing and unique and different backgrounds. So I'm going to throw this question to you, Layla, because I know that you're from New York City originally, and you have a background, as you stated, in singing and acting and modeling, and it had always been in the back of your mind. I mean, did you grow up watching wrestling at all, or did you have any family members or friends that were into it that kind of, you know, got you into it as well?
Yeah, so I have a cousin who's a few years older than me. So when we were young, he was a big wrestling fan. He was the one that always had it on TV. So I spent a lot of time at my family's house. So that's how I started watching it. He introduced me to wrestling, and that's how I got to learn about, you know, The Rock and Chyna, who was a big inspiration. That's who was there, Stone Cold, The Undertaker, like all those guys. That Attitude Era. So that's when I was watching it, and I always thought it was super cool. And yeah, me, my siblings, my cousins, we spent a lot of time play wrestling in the house, slamming each other in the bed. So it started like that, as like fun and games. And even as I got older, like in my teenage years, I would still like to wrestle my friends. So it was always like just little moments like that stuck with me. And, you know, as I got older and I started doing more of like the modeling and just like the entertainment work, I think that's when it started clicking that this is something that I should do. And this is something that I could possibly be really good at, because I'm just a natural entertainer. I love speaking. I love kicking ass. I love looking beautiful, and everything just kind of meshed well together, and it just makes sense.
Yeah, because like pro wrestling, like the modeling, it's great and all, but it's kind of like it's one thing, you know. Wrestling is a smorgasbord of everything thrown into one. You get to model, you get to act, you get to perform. Sometimes you get to sing, you get to talk. There's so many avenues that go through wrestling, and in a wrestling show, there's so many elements involved. So it's really like you get to be kind of the ultimate entertainer, you know, and it's a lot of fun. Like,
yeah, you get to utilize almost all of your talents into this in one way or another.
Yeah. Everything that you've picked up in life, all of your experience, it tends to, even the wear and tear of life makes you a better wrestler, because it's a certain attitude and a certain mentality that you have to take in there, you know? So like going through things in your life, they make you hard, they make you grizzled, and you're able to translate that into your wrestling and really be able to, like, the character it's never a character if it's done right. It's always a representation of you and things that you felt and emotions and feelings. And when you're able to bring those out in those moments, that's when you have those special moments in the ring. And
everybody has something that they're fighting for. So everybody has a story, and everybody can bring that and incorporate that into their work.
Yeah. And as far as taking off, like you said earlier, we made our professional wrestling debut in October of 2020. So it hasn't even been a full year that we've been actually wrestling matches, been on the road, been trying to get our name out there. Before that, we were just cocooned, you know, learning and training and things like that. And then once we were ready to get on the road, here we are. We're at 10 months now.
That's when things took off.
Ooh, and, you know, speaking of, we're going to go obviously and talk about both of your careers. For those watching, you know, Luke, and obviously you can give us even more background into where you've worked in terms of promotions and things of that nature. I know you have connections with SWE Fury, and you've been all over the place pretty much. Y'all can definitely check out Luke's matches on YouTube, because there's a ton of them. They're all very phenomenal. And the same for Layla. If Layla looks familiar, it's because, you know, I personally first saw your work on AEW Dark and AEW Dark Elevation. You know, and even doing my research, I've watched the matches, but when I went back to look at all the work that you've done just on those two shows, I was like, oh my gosh, you've done things with Diamante, Abaddon, you know, Penelope Ford, Nyla Rose. I mean, pretty much most of the female locker room that's at All Elite Wrestling. So I'm going to throw, speaking of AEW, I'm going to throw this question to you, Layla, and then we're going to get back to you, Luke, and talk about your work that people need to know about. So Layla, how did that conversation with All Elite Wrestling start? Specifically because, as you both stated, you've only been in this business for not that long. It's only been a couple of years. So how did that connection really get going?
Well, this all happened, I would say, a few months into me making my debut, and I'm out there working. Maybe about 4 months later, I get a message from somebody, and they're asking me if I would be interested in coming in for Dark and, you know, doing some work for All Elite Wrestling. My heart sank. I couldn't breathe. At this time, I had just started a new job in the service industry down in Miami. So I was just so excited. I didn't have anybody to tell at the moment because I didn't know anybody at work. And I'm like, oh my God, this is huge news. So obviously I call him, and, you know, I screenshot the message and I sent it to him like, Luke, look at this. And I just remember so many emotions going through me. I couldn't even breathe. Even right now, thinking about it, I'm getting all like hot and flustered because it was just so crazy, so unexpected. And I was extremely excited. At that time, I definitely had a lot of emotions going through my head. I wasn't necessarily sure if I was ready for something this big so soon. But I mean, especially after talking to him, you know, he was like, you have to do this. And I knew that I had to do this. I could not pass up this opportunity, which I'm, you know, so extremely grateful and so glad that I went through everything, because it has completely changed my life in so many amazing ways. And I mean, I just look forward to what else the future holds with All Elite Wrestling.
And it was validation, because at that point we had just left where we were prior. And, you know, they had tried to put a hit out on us in the business. Don't book these people. These are not good people, whatever it may be. You know, new people coming out in the business, people don't want to see you succeed. No matter what you got, no matter where you've been from, people always feel like you haven't paid enough dues. You haven't done enough. Even if you've been busting your ass for weeks, months, a year. We were in the gym for a year before we ever had a professional wrestling match, before we ever wanted to go do anything in the business. And when it was time to finally start making a name for ourselves, it wasn't but a couple shows before they reached out to her. And it was exactly what I said. And I have been telling her for months and months before that. Whenever the time comes, they're going to reach out. Like, they're going to reach out. It was just something that I knew, because I had seen this. I'm watching the business. I'm watching people grow. I'm watching us evolve. I see who's on TV. I see what's going on, you know? So it was validation for like all the work and the hard work that we put in. And, you know, the first time that they reached out to her, you know, she didn't get a response back for like a couple of weeks after, confirming that it was really going to happen.
Yeah.
And when it happened, we were on our way to Texas. You know, we were going out to Texas for the first time, I think, going to SWE on the road, driving with our dog.
Driving like 20 hours.
20 hours in the car. We had just switched over and she was driving and I was sleeping for like a couple hours. And I wake up and she's crying.
Yeah.
She's crying. She finally got the confirmation that it was going to happen. And that's just, you know, the validation and the hard work. And it's emotional for us because we put so much into it. And it feels like we've been through so much. And of course, a lot more things are going to happen. But in my opinion, that first initial period of becoming a professional wrestler, that initial training period, is the hardest part of the business, you know, because you're really trying to find your footing and figure out if this is something that you really want to do. You know, I at this point, and I'm sure she feels the same way, no matter what opportunity comes, we're living our dream. We're professional wrestlers. We go on the road. We make our towns. We sell merch. We meet fans. We inspire people. That's what we do on this level. So it's only going to translate to the next level. So we're living the dream now. It's just a matter of time.
Yes, it's the passion for me, listening and watching you guys talk about your dreams and making them a reality. And for you, Luke, I mean, your background is different, but you're also busting your tail to make things happen. So talk to us about, you know, how it's been for you working with SWE Fury and really just encouraging and motivating yourself in these hard times to really just get to where you want to be.
Yeah, and I think that's really why I became certified Luke Kurtis, because it's just a representation of everything that I've been my whole life. You know, I was an amateur wrestler. I did grow up in the streets of Miami. Life was very tough for me. I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. I went to public school like everybody else. It was tough for me. Growing up was tough. I've been through a lot of things in my life. So at the end of the day, you know, the opportunities will come because I do push and I do work hard. But I don't need the opportunity to be Luke Kurtis, to be living my dream, to be a professional wrestler. I've already been certified. I came up certified. I'm a professional wrestler. I'm an amateur wrestler. I'm not a play wrestler. I am a wrestler. My whole life is wrestling. So that's how I got to where I am today. And of course, during the hard times, you know, we know how each other think. And of course, she gets opportunities. And, you know, anybody, it's human nature. Of course, I'm happy for her. Of course, we need this. We need this. But of course, I think to myself, man, you know, when's your opportunity going to come? When is your time going to come? And that's things that I probably struggled with more like months ago. But now that's something that once you kind of get set into how you want to progress as a professional wrestler, those things don't matter as much, because I know that if I just stay on the path that I'm on, it's just a matter of time. You know, we do everything that we have to do. And even her, she hasn't made it yet to where she wants to be. You're never there. You're never satisfied. So as long as you continue to improve and work on yourself and get better, you know, the opportunities will come, you know. So, but yes, I've wrestled, you know, Carlito, you know, that was a big moment for me. Being able to mix it up with WWE guys, you know, I have a lot of good relationship with guys that are in WWE, guys that are in AEW. So for me, it's like, people know me, you know, boys in the business, they know who I am. It doesn't matter exactly where I'm at or what TV I'm on at the moment. I'm entrenched in the business and I have friends in the business and I enjoy putting matches together and helping other people come up with stuff and working with new guys. I'm not the guy that always needs to be in the main event. I enjoy, you know, curtain jerking. I enjoy working the new guys and helping get them over and teach them about the business and pass on knowledge that I have. Like, that's something that I enjoy. So I love what I'm doing, you know. I love every opportunity that I get. Every show that I work, to me, is an opportunity. Meeting new guys is an opportunity. Meeting new fans is an opportunity. So I think it's going great.
It is. And we can see it. We can see the excitement with both of you. And that's an achievement, because this business can harden you. It can make you jaded. It can really, you know, flip your whole world upside down. So the fact that you are both still so passionate, still so excited, and still have smiles on your faces, it's a blessing, you know.
Absolutely.
Let's get into you both being a couple, and Certified Luke, you hit on this not too long ago in your passionate speech, in terms of, you know, seeing the success that Layla has had, and thinking to yourself sometimes, you know, or in the past having to struggle with thoughts about your own career. And I think it's really fabulous that you're so candid about that. As a couple, you know, being in this business together and being able to go on this journey together, what are some of the experiences that you've both been through when you were starting and really trying to not just do for your own individual careers, but to really do for both of you as a couple, just even in real life?
Well, I mean, the fact that we started this journey together, it has made our bond so strong as a couple. We are there for each other. We help each other. It's always it's always a team. It's never, you know, I or him. So we just do everything that we can to work together and be on the same page. I'm not even sure how far I would have gotten if I didn't have him by my side, because like I mentioned earlier, it was very tough for me learning the wrestling and learning the business. And he just has more of like a natural grasp on that stuff. He picks it up easier. And so he helps me a lot with